What started as a pretty boring weekend quickly turned into one of the craziest and most exciting weekends we've had in college football all season. Well, the regular season has officially wrapped up, and next week is conference championship week. We somehow made it through the regular season as best we could, and it looks like college football is actually going to pull this off. Today, I'm going to be giving my 5 biggest takeaways from week 15 of the college football season. Before we get to my takeaways, make sure you smash that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. About 85% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so if you love college football, this is definitely the place for you. I did a video on this last night where I broke down my initial thoughts, so if you'd like to hear my more in-depth reaction from the LSU-Florida game, go check out that video. I won't talk about it as much now, but I still have to have this as my number 1 takeaway. Next week's SEC title game was essentially going to be a version of an 8-team playoff, with Florida making it to the actual playoff with a win. Now, the Gators can kiss those hopes goodbye. The LSU Tigers shocked the world last night by taking down Florida on the road. Missing half their team, LSU didn't look like 23-point underdogs last night. The loss eliminated the Gators from playoff contention, no matter what the outcome is next week against Alabama. This definitely shakes up the college football playoff just a tad, but for the most part, I think this guarantees the top 4 will be Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson, assuming everything goes as planned. I'll be posting a video soon where I'm going to be going over all the different scenarios for how teams can still reach the college football playoff, so stay tuned for that video. My next takeaway is that the Pac-12 really screwed up this year. Is USC one of the 4 best teams in the country this year? Probably not, but the way they've been playing lately, they very easily could have finished the season 9-0 or 10-0, and they could have been Pac-12 champs, likely landing a spot in the college football playoff. The Trojans pulled out a last-second victory over a very good and underrated UCLA team last night, finishing the Pac-12 season 5-0. They'll play Washington in the Pac-12 title game this week, and will likely beat them to move to 6-0 on the season and become Pac-12 champs. Unfortunately, it just won't be enough for the Trojans to reach the playoff. Entering this weekend, the Trojans sat at number 15 in the rankings. I just don't see any way, barring some absolute anarchy, that they can hop up 11 spots to sneak their way in. They'll likely move up this week, but it won't be enough. The Trojans aren't to blame for this, neither is the college football playoff. It's the Pac-12. The Pac-12 was the last Power 5 conference to begin play, and they gave no room for error during the season. If a game was canceled, there wasn't a week to make it up. Had the Pac-12 started the season a few weeks earlier, there's a good chance they could have sent a team to the playoffs. Oh well, maybe next season, Pac-12. Before I get to my other takeaways, if you could please take a second to give this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps the channel and video out, and it sends this video to more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. The playoff committee seems wrong about something every week, but it often looks like they are ahead of the game. For weeks, they were disrespecting BYU, but it turns out they were right to not rank them so high. Then, they had a 3-loss North Carolina team in the top 20, which looked like an absolute joke. Well, they were right about that one too. North Carolina is pretty damn good. This is something we knew entering the season, but early and questionable and head-scratching losses made us wonder if the Tar Heels were truly legit. Well, it looks like they are. They embarrassed Miami on Saturday as they went into Hard Rock Stadium and beat the number 10 team in the country by about 80 points. Though I've been low on the Tar Heels over the last few weeks, I actually picked them to win this game on my podcast last week. I just had a strange feeling that they were going to go in and pull this one off, and boy did they ever. It was a record-setting day for North Carolina as running backs Michael Carter and Javonte Williams produced the most rushing yards by teammates in one game in FBS history. Carter had 308 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, and Javonte Williams had 236 rushing yards with 3 touchdowns. The Tar Heels had 15 rushes of 10 yards and averaged 11 yards per carry on first down rushes. For the game, North Carolina finished with 778 total yards, the second most by any team in the FBS this season. It really is amazing just how different North Carolina's season would have looked had they not lost those early season games to Florida State and Virginia by only a field goal in each game. They'd have only 1 loss on the season, and they could have been potentially making a push towards playing in the ACC title game and maybe even fighting for a playoff spot. Either way, it's been a great season for the Tar Heels, and I think they are going to be a legitimate threat in the ACC next season, and potentially a playoff contender. With next week being the Sun Belt Championship for Coastal, it's easy to see why they would have overlooked this game and been more focused on next week. I didn't watch the whole game, but I did see a good portion of the second half. Based on the play calling, it seemed like Coastal was more focused on playing conservative and just getting through the game, as opposed to trying to make a statement and win the game. Luckily for them, their dream season continues as they finish the regular season 11-0. With the win next week, the Chanticleers will move to 12-0 and will likely clinch themselves a spot in a New Year's Six bowl game. My final takeaway isn't really a takeaway per se, it's just me wanting to remind everyone that my Arizona State Sun Devils defeated the Arizona Wildcats 70-7 this past weekend. The sad part is that ASU easily could have poured on more points, but did the honorable thing by pulling back once they got to 60. It was a really rough season for my Devils as they went 1-2 on the year. Half of their games were canceled, and 2 of their losses came in heartbreaking fashion. Although it was a very small sample size, I'm very excited to see what ASU does next year. This team should have been 3-0 as they blew leads in the final minute for both the games they lost, but that's okay. Jayden Daniels is the real deal, and he's going to be a force in the Pac-12 next season and potentially could be a Heisman candidate for 2021. Also, ASU has some of the best running backs in the country with Chip Trayanum and Rachaad White, not to mention a really good young receiving core. ASU, I believe, is the 9th youngest team in the FBS this season, and they're going to be returning over 90% of their roster next year, so things are looking really good in Tempe for 2021.
Here's the deal. For some of you freshmen, that's your first college win.
Yes, sir.
And it could be against a better opponent.
Yes, sir.
I got a game ball to give out.
Oh, yeah.
To Jackson.
Well, those are my 5 takeaways from this past weekend in college football. Drop a comment down below with your biggest takeaway from the weekend. If you could please take a second to give this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it, as it helps send this video to more college football fans. Also, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. If you love college football content, this is definitely the place for you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.